Back in 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a measure into law that consolidates around 650 local police and fire pension funds into just two funds, one for police and one for firefighters. Now, this does not impact the city of Chicago's police and fire pension funds, just all of the downstate suburban police and fire pension funds. Now, each fund's different, right? Different amounts of money that are involved, different number of annuitants that are involved, different types of benefit scales, and so on. And when you really get down and check out some of these numbers, it's fascinating to see how one municipality's pension funds for their police and fire can be doing awesome, and another municipality's police and fire pension funds not doing so hot. So the idea was to consolidate these funds so that all of the funds could benefit from having a much larger pool of money to actually go out and invest and reap any kinds of returns. You're talking about, one fund that might have $200 million in it, another one, several million. But if you lump all these together, then you're talking about billions of dollars. And these are just roundabout numbers, but now it's law that these funds have to be consolidated. There have been challenges against the law from about 14 different local funds, most of which are police funds, and I think there's two actual firefighter funds that are challenging the state law. But the police funds, I want to say, had about $9 billion. The fire funds, all consolidated, had about $8 billion. But the challenge is that by consolidating all these funds, it's taking away some of the rights that the local pension funds and the boards that constitute those funds and make decisions locally, their powers being stripped. So this lawsuit was filed in a lower court. The court sided with the state, saying that the law was constitutional. It went to an appellate court in state court, and that appellate court sided with the state, saying it's constitutional. Now it's in the Illinois Supreme Court, and the Illinois Supreme Court accepting that challenge. But I talked with Amanda Hamilton. She is the attorney representing the plaintiffs groups here. Again, 14 different funds, and she lays out the arguments that they're going to be making in front of the Illinois Supreme Court.
We take issue with the fact that this legislation significantly diminishes, if not eliminates, the effect of each participant's vote. That is to say, their right to decide who controls the funds or who manages their funds, and really kind of transfers that power out of their hands, and we think that's violative of the Constitution. We also take an issue with the fact that it forces the individual funds to bear the transfer and transition costs. We don't think that's appropriate either.
But what about the two courts that have sided against the plaintiffs and on the side of the state, saying that the law is constitutional? How confident is Amanda Hamilton with Konicek Dillon, the attorney firm that is representing these plaintiffs in this challenge of the consolidated pensions? How confident are they going into the case?
I think that it's anytime you have a constitutional issue, it is tricky and it is nuanced. So, as you mentioned, the two lower courts did find that there was no violation, but I'm really eager to get the Illinois Supreme Court's take on it, because really they're the final authority. So I'm excited and optimistic. I'm glad that they're going to hear it.
We have yet to know exactly when this will be heard, but, we have some dates, at least when it comes to the filings that are going to have to happen in the Illinois Supreme Court. But Amanda talks about some of the number of funds that are involved here that they're representing heading into the Illinois Supreme Court.
Yep, we have the majority of the funds that we're representing are police, but we do have, I believe, two remaining fire funds as well.
And those funds, if you check out the latest article I wrote on this, you'll be able to see all of the different funds that are involved here. You've got the police funds from Arlington Heights, Aurora, Champaign, Chicago Heights, Chicago Ridge, Cicero, DeKalb, Elgin, Elmhurst, Evanston, Mokina, Palos Heights, Rantoul, Villa Park, Wooddale, and Woodridge. The firefighter fund plaintiffs groups are from Maywood and Pleasant View. And again, some of the overall numbers that are involved, at least in all the funds that are combined, you got $9.1 billion. That's part of the Illinois Police Officers Pension Investment Fund. That's the consolidated fund. And the Illinois Firefighters Pension Investment Fund, they reported about $8 billion in assets. So what's next here? She talked more about how the votes are being diluted by this law, consolidating these pensions, taking away substantial amounts of power from these local pension boards.
Yeah, well, and I think in our brief we kind of did the math in terms of how their voting power is so diluted. Currently these local funds are able to, vote locally for who's going to be managing, their board of trustees, who are those individuals are going to be. And then those board of trustees, then, if the individual funds or rather the individual participants are not happy with the way those funds are performing, they have the ability to vote in new trustees. The problem is once that with this legislation and this consolidation, it dilutes their votes so significantly. And is lumping in all of the funds together. That means some funds that are doing very, very well are now going to be lumped in with some funds who have been doing very, very poorly. And we just don't think it's fair to take away their voting rights.
Again, we're hearing from Amanda Hamilton. She's an attorney representing the plaintiffs groups suing the states over a pension consolidation law that was enacted in 2019, lumping around 650 different local public safety pension funds, police and firefighters, into just two funds, one for police, one for firefighters. This does not impact the city of Chicago. They still stand alone. But what are the next steps?
So I can tell you our opening brief is due on June 28th. I do anticipate us filing it by that deadline. And like I said, I'd be happy to send you a copy once it's filed. But yeah, June 28th is the first deadline. And then obviously the respondents or the defendants appellees will have an opportunity to write their response brief, and then we'll have a reply brief. But June 28th is the first deadline.
So we'll be watching closely for that. Looking forward to seeing the briefs, and we'll also report out when that case is going to be heard. The Illinois Municipal League says that they believe the law will be upheld, quote, as it's been twice already, and will eventually yield to better financial results for both pension beneficiaries and for taxpayers. Let's go ahead and take a quick call here at 217-629-7970. Thanks for your patience. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning. This kind of sums up every bad idea of the state is the sacrifice of the individual's rights in order to benefit the whole. And when you do that kind of stuff, I mean, that's socialism. Like you're taking away individual rights for the justification for these people is that they're benefiting the whole while you give up your rights. And we just have to continue to fight that.
Well, and the question really comes down to what exactly are these local pension boards that are still constituted? What's their role now? Because they were tasked with managing the funds, and also, if as Amanda Hamilton said, if a pension fund's not doing well, then the local pension board can fire the investors that they hired, right? Well, what happens now if they feel that they're not being properly represented by this now consolidated conglomerate of pension funds?
Yeah, I would say that happens. That should be a massive concern because, again, you're taking away everybody's individual right to make a decision about what they should have charge of. And when you do that, like you continue to squash everybody's voices and opinions, and you eliminate this free market idea of if you're not doing it well, then replace it and go somewhere else and get somebody else. And, I think politicians in general fear that because it takes away their power that they want so badly.
Yeah, appreciate the call. Interesting points, no question. But I know that the state's already said, and even the governor has said that, hey, they still have some control locally. They can still determine the benefits that their members are getting. But the ultimate question about how well the funds are performing, and the question of being, taking a good fund that's well-funded and mixing it with another fund that's well-funded while the funds are separate, they're still pulling the funds together for investment returns. Why shouldn't the good and well-funded pension be able to reap all of the rewards from their investments? Interesting questions that we'll obviously see play out in the Illinois Supreme Court.